Hello, friends and well-wishers, and welcome back to A Quarter Ton of Fun. It's your buddy Ryan, a.k.a. The Champ. Always and forever I will be the champ. And today we're going to talk about my return last week to the world of work and my hasty exit from the world of work. What exactly happened? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about that. Plus, of course, weekly weigh-in, and it wasn't good this week. I knew it wasn't going to be good this week. But just how bad was it? Okay, so when last we talked, I told you guys it was hectic. It was chaos around here. Max was starting back to school. I was starting back to work after a long layoff. Things were looking on the upswing. So, last Tuesday, I did indeed return to work at a local university doing food prep for a company there. It's a job I worked at before that I have enjoyed. I love the people there. They're awesome. And they were giving me yet another shot. And I went in, and for about an hour I was fine. I was feeling pretty good. And the weird thing is, to back up a little bit, I've talked to you guys about my depression, a little bit about my anxiety, how nervous and how upset I get about things. And usually starting to work or starting back to work, even going back to work after the weekend or something like that, would fill me with anxiety and I would be super nervous. And going into Tuesday, I didn't feel nervous. I actually felt good. I was excited about going back, and I felt like it was a really positive step for me. And so I was happy to be there. I was happy to see some old friends, some people I had worked with before, to talk to them, to work with them. And like I said, for about an hour, everything was going okay. And then my back started hurting really, really bad. And we talked before about my sciatic pain. This was different. This was lower back pain, but it was intense. And I think it's partly because I'm just not used to standing in one place. And I know it might sound funny to talk about, well, you walked a 5K, you can do all this walking and things. Why couldn't you stand and work? And I genuinely believe it's because I just was not used to standing in one place, and it's different physically. And it was putting a lot of pressure on my lower back. And so, of course, I start worrying about that. I start freaking out. And I started having dry heaves. I had to go to the bathroom like 3 different times and dry heave. I didn't bring up my breakfast or anything, but I dry heaved. I threw up the water I had been drinking. And then I started getting really, really dizzy. And the room was kind of floating. And I'm working, at this point I'm cutting tomatoes, right? And I'm working with a knife. And there were several times I had to put the knife down and just stop, sweating profusely. I'm just feeling terrible. And so I lasted about 2.5 hours. I had gone in at 8:30, and at about 11 o'clock or a little after, I had to go and talk to my boss and just tell him, as embarrassing as it was to tell him this, and as much as I hated doing it, since they were giving me another shot, and since I needed the job, I wanted the job, it was embarrassing to have to tell him I don't think I was ready for it. And I don't know, obviously the back pain is physical. I don't know if the other stuff was physical reaction. I don't know if it was mental, my anxiety getting the best of me. I honestly don't know what happened, but normally, and when I found myself in situations like this before, I would turtle up. I would try to hide the fact that I wasn't working from people. I would lie to my family and friends about it. I would make up excuses. I would, avoid talking to people. I would certainly not make a video and admit this kind of thing because it's embarrassing. I want to work. I want to help the financial standing of my family, and we're getting by on what my wife makes. But we could do a whole lot better if I was helping out. So I was very ashamed when this happened, but I made a decision and I made this decision a while ago. I am not going to lie to people, especially the people close to me. I am not going, because it's a problem and it's something I've dealt with. And I know a large part of it is I hate disappointing people. I hate letting people down. And so I will put off delivering bad news in any way that I can. And all it does is create further destruction and chaos and lack of trust and hurt people and hurt myself. Because then I'm dealing with the ball of anxiety inside myself about what I'm lying about and keeping from people. And I don't want to be that person anymore. Because I can excuse it. I understand the anxiety. I think is the root cause of it. But I don't want that to be an excuse for bad behavior and doing negative things and hurting people. I honestly have to own up to the fact that I was becoming, a habitual liar because of trying to avoid those things and trying to not address the root problem of it all, which is not the anxiety, which is the weight. Because the weight was the cause of all of it. Every time I couldn't work, every time I would lose a job, every time I would quit a job, every time I would avoid a job, it was because of my weight, my size, the physical pain, the physical embarrassment, the inability to do the job, and I don't want to be that person. And it's a hard thing to talk about. And it's something that I never would have talked about in this channel in such a public forum before. But what I'm discovering is that when you're open and honest with people, they're a lot more understanding and they're a lot more kind to you. And when you are open and honest with yourself, you can work through things better and you can deal with things better. Because the way I would have handled this situation before was to lie about it, to turtle up, to not do a video about it, just not mention it, to try to avoid talking to people close to me about it, to try to avoid admitting it. And I would have been a huge ball of anxiety. I would have been worrying about it all the time. And it would have been awful. And I would have just gotten worse and worse, and things would have spiraled out of control, and I would have hurt people. And hurt their trust in me again. And by being honest, I found a lot of compassion, a lot of understanding. And I think people, maybe through these videos, even, my close family and friends, it's hard sometimes to sit down face to face and talk to people about your own failings and your own mental issues and the bad things you've done in your life. Somehow, it's easier to admit it to a camera and know that any Tom, Dick, or Harry in the world can access this and watch it. But being honest with myself about who I am and my limitations and my failures has been good for me. And so that's what I want to do again. And so it was embarrassing. And I was really down on myself that day. When I left, my wife works on the same campus. I immediately went to her office and told her what happened because I had no intention of keeping anything from her, but I did not want a similar situation to happen before, or even for her to have the inkling that I was trying to keep anything from her. I went right to her and let her know what was going on. I talked to my in-laws, my sister, the people closest to me that day about it. And because I didn't want any of that stuff hanging over my head, and I didn't want any of them, operating under a false pretense of what was going on. So I came home and I was depressed, and I spent a good part of this past week eating too much. And one thing that my sister, my wife, my mother-in-law, everyone who talked to me about this situation said, well, it's unfortunate, but maybe you need a little more time. Maybe you need to address the mental health aspect, the anxiety aspect more. But don't let it stop your progress. And I said, I'm not going to let it stop my progress. I'm going to get this done. I've come too far. And then what did I do is I spent the week binging and eating way too much stuff. Like today, for instance, I started off after weekly weigh-in knowing that I gained weight, figuring it was coming. And so I was like, all right, I'm getting back on track today. I've had some bad days, but I've dealt with this. I'm feeling better, more positive about it. I'm moving forward. So this morning I had some yogurt and fruit. At lunchtime I had a turkey wrap. And for dinner I'm having some leftover spaghetti and salad, right? completely good, pretty normal food day, no problem. Plenty of calories left over for a snack or two in there. And after I ate the turkey wrap, I had 2 corn dogs. And then after I ate the 2 corn dogs, I had some chips. And then after that, I had some crackers and hummus. And then I had some ice cream. And then I dipped back into Max's room and stole more of his Easter candy. And this was all in the span of an hour from lunch. And I wasn't hungry physically for any of it. I didn't. After the turkey wrap I had for lunch, I was completely satisfied. I was full. But for whatever reason, the anxiety, the worry, the depression, or just the fact that I love food and I wanted to eat it, I just couldn't stop. And every time I would come back into the kitchen to get something, I would think to myself, why are you doing this? What's the purpose of this? Why can't you stop? And I get angry at myself and I gobble the thing down and feel momentarily better and then feel worse and then come back in the kitchen and get something else. And I can't let that continue because, as I've said numerous times, and I know I sound like a broken record, I'm sorry, I've come too far to slide back. And then I'm just looking at this as another bump in the road. So, where do I go from here? I do think it's important for me to look into the anxiety thing because I do wonder if it is not something that has grown strong enough to really affect me, even to the point of causing physical symptoms like it seemed to. I think as I continue to lose weight and exercise, the back pain will get better. I will get to a point where I can do a job where I'm standing in one place. Or maybe I have to find a job where I'm moving around and doing different things. But I'll get there with that. I need to explore the mental aspect. So I'm looking into that now, maybe doing some counseling, maybe changing up the drug that I'm on for depression and anxiety, seeing if I can maybe get on something that's a little bit stronger. I don't want to zonk myself out. I don't want to be a zombie. I don't want to lose this sparkling wit that you all have come to depend on. But I also don't want to let anxiety and depression rule my life. And all this stuff is tied together. As we talked about in the episode about depression, as we've talked about a lot here on this channel, it's not just weight, it's not just depression, it's not just anxiety, it's a weird amalgamation of all of those things. And they swirl around, they get you caught up in them, and I can't let myself get taken down by them. I can't let my family get taken down by them. So I plan to take a little time off of work for right now, from working still. I plan to continue losing weight, get back on track from where I've been up to and including today, and to start addressing the anxiety and the mental health issue a little stronger and see if I can get into some counseling and see if that will help me. And now it's time for everyone's favorite segment except mine. Weekly Weigh-In. Get out of here. Stupid graphic. So last week I had a huge weight swing. I was 15 pounds down. I was down to 499. I had broken the 500-pound barrier, but as you'll remember, I was not super enthusiastic about it for a number of reasons. One, I think some of that weight had been water weight and bloating from the week before that was probably just gone. Two, I did do well that week, so I probably did lose some weight. And three, I was on a steroid for an ear infection. So I sort of figured coming into this week, not being on the steroid anymore, and then with everything that happened with my return to work and the way I've been eating, I knew the scale was going to go up. And it did. 505 is what it read this morning when I stepped on it. And that's not good. That's 6 pounds higher than where I was. I figure at least a few pounds of that are from the steroid, maybe returning me back to my normal fluid level or whatever. But I gained weight. I ate poorly this week, and I gained weight. The solace I can take is I am still lighter now than I was a few weeks ago, and next week I can be lighter still. I'm not going to let the number on the scale get me too far down. I know what I need to do. Quite frankly, over the last few months, I just haven't been doing it consistently, and that's why every week on Weekly Weigh-In, I'm kind of saying a lot of the same things about I need to get back to it, I need to do it, and really, it's a lot of gum flapping and not as much action as I need to have. So I'm not going to sit here and make any promises, but I know I don't want to see the scale keep going back up. I can't afford for that to happen if I want to get to my goal weight by the time I'm 40. So starting today, I am starting right now this minute as I'm filming this on Monday. You'll see it on Tuesday. I am going to try to do a lot better, and I hope next week's Weekly Weigh-In is a positive move in the right direction, because I do want to get consistently under 500 pounds, and I do want to bring you guys the Breaking the 500-Pound Barrier celebration. My Ice Machine is so excited about it. It's emphasizing the point for me. Thank you, Ice Machine. So let's do the usual plugs and plea for more viewers and subscribers. Please subscribe to this channel. Click that little red button down there that says subscribe, and then hit the little bell next to it. When you do, it's going to notify you every time I put out a new episode. That's going to be every Tuesday. You can interact with me on social media. On Twitter, I am @QuarterFun. On Instagram, I'm @A quarter ton of fun. Check them out. Next week, we're going to talk about what it's like being a supersized person in a regular-sized person's world. Sometimes you just don't fit in places where you'd like to. So next week, we're going to talk about it. And I want you to leave me in the comments, is there anything in life that your weight has kept you from doing? Attending an event, going to a certain place, performing a certain physical activity, whatever it is, leave it in the comments below. And maybe next week I'll mention it on the show. After that depression episode a few weeks ago, I wanted things to be more lighthearted. I wanted to get away from being so down in the dumps, but the events of last week really got me down. And the bad food spiral I've been on since has kind of got me down. So I needed to talk about it, and I needed to address it with you guys and let you know what's going on and try to be more honest, not only with myself and with my family, but with you guys too. Thank you for being here, for being my online therapist, letting me lay upon your couch, resting my feet and emptying my head. I really do appreciate it. And remember, no matter if you're working hard or hardly working, you are damn sexy.